From empire to industry, sugar impacted humans and ecology. James Walvin is Professor Emeritus in History at the University of York. He tells Time Evoke about the complex past that explains the remarkable expansion of sugar around the world. I am historian, and in the 1960s I started studying the history of a sugar plantation in Jamaica, which was founded in 1670. That grew into a broader study of extraordinary impacts of sugar on demography. I have researched the huge movements of human pushed into slavery and transported from Africa to produce sugar across the Atlantic. More recently, I have been working on the impacts of sugar on global health. Sugar is a very distinctive product since it moved very quickly from being considered a great luxury to becoming an extremely cheap everyday necessity. There are physiological factors underpinning this. Scientists have conducted research where they have found that if you give an infant a bit of sugar, they would like it, which is the opposite reaction they have to salt. It is as if we are hardwired towards sweetness. In recent times, and particularly since the Second World War onwards, the great global commercial empires of food and beverage manufacture have used this factor to promote their products. But the world should think more deeply about the history that underpins this desire. Western European powers moved more than 12 million Africans across the Atlantic to grow sugar, later expanding the use of slavery into tobacco and cotton cultivation. Then, after having constructed this brutal system in 19th century, the British started to get righteous and decided that slavery was wrong. They turned to another form of less than free labor, indentured labor. They introduced huge numbers of Indian indentured labor into the Caribbean and other locations to cultivate sugar. Initially, sugar was very expensive and people in the West used honey for sweetness. But once inexpensive labor in the form of slavery was linked to sugar, its price began to fall. What in the Middle Ages was a luxury only aristocrats and royalty could afford became the daily commodity of the common person. By 1750, the price of sugar had fallen dramatically, even though it was still shipped across vast distances. Ordinary people across Western Europe and North America began to mix sugar daily into their food and beverages. The phrase "sweetened to taste" became a part of the Western vernacular. Interestingly, sugar became a theme in the lives of working people in the West just as the need for cheap labor was expanding there. Sugar helped the physically demanding labor that was at heart of the Industrial Revolution. For people whose lives were dominated by hard labor, sugar provided a form of energy at a lower cost. The commercial manufacture of sugar-based common products began to intensify in the late 18th century with the mass production of candied sweets and confectionery like biscuits and cakes. By the 1880s, the skylines of the cities in Europe and America were dominated by huge factories producing these goods. Sweetness started to get embedded into cheap diets, which became a part of everyday life in the Western world. By export and migration, this way of eating spread this word so well that adding sugar to other products in the wider world of food production became common. While this practice began with beet sugar in the 20th century, this grew to include many forms of chemical sweeteners in almost every consumable product. By 1960s, scientists began realizing findings on the health impacts of the excessive consumption of sugar with dental science, for instance, finding deleterious effects on children's teeth, and physiologists observing marked rises in obesity. This was once thought to be a Western phenomenon, but today obesity is everywhere, also because artificially sweetened food products and drinks are everywhere. A diet rich in sweetness gives immediate satisfaction, but it doesn't give the nutrition people truly need. Instead, it causes lifestyle-related chronic health problems, now an unavoidable global health issue. Sugar also left its mark on the world's ecology. Slave-grown sugar in the Americas and the Caribbean was cultivated in plantations characterized by the destruction of the natural habitat over large swaths and the imposition of an intensively grown crop requiring a great deal of water and other inputs. These plantations then became the model frequently for the timber production, pineapples, tea, rubber, tobacco, and so on worldwide. Such agriculture has impacted huge area of the tropical and semi-tropical world, destroying biodiversity and imposing a monoculture which have severe environmental fallouts. These are all important aspects of history to consider in the effort to build a better future for both the environment and human societies.